Okay, I actually have so much natural light today. I'm loving it. I'm in the new house filming this. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Sarah. Today I'm going to be doing a review of two fairly new products from Wet n Wild. So Wet n Wild has always had their Photofocus foundation. I think it's been out for like 5 years, maybe more. More recently, they came out with their Dewy line of the Photofocus foundation. So I thought I would love to try this because I absolutely hated the Photofocus original formula. Even like the face paint foundation from Dollar Tree that is 5 shades off looked better than this. I don't know what it was. It looked horrible. So we're gonna try and see if this formula is a lot better. I've heard very good things about it, that it is very less dry than the previous formula, and that's one of the things that I thought made it look so horrible on my skin. That was a lot of rambling. I have the shade Nude Ivory, so I'm gonna be doing a 10-hour wear test on this today. It's 2 o'clock right now, so I might not quite make it to exactly 10 hours, but I plan to do another review of this tomorrow, and I'll put it on in the morning so I can get like a full day. But I'm going to be doing some work around the house as well as running some errands, so I think it'll be a good test of seeing how it works when I'm not just like sitting at home. And the other thing that I saw is they have a new concealer. This is their Wet n Wild Mega Last Incognito All Day Full Coverage Concealer. I've used their other concealer. I think they only have one other in their line, and it's like fine. It's not the greatest, but this was in the new section, and full coverage, I am always down to try any concealer that claims to be full coverage. So I got these both at Five Below, and this was $5. This I want to say was $3 or $4, but at the most it was $5. So if you want to stick around, you can watch me apply it and see my thoughts throughout the day. And if you want to, subscribe to this channel, and you can see more videos like this. If you are subscribed, tell me what kind of videos you want to see, because I'm always looking to please the masses, or the 20 people that watch my videos, 15 that aren't family and friends. Okay. Hi, so obviously it is a different day. So I had filmed the entire day on my camera, and then something happened to the memory card. It was corrupted, and I so far have not been able to recover any of the footage on that, so I got a new card and I'm just gonna refilm everything. So that really sucks because I was happy with how it turned out, but it also gave me more days to test out this foundation a variety of different ways, because it's been 4 days since I last filmed that, because I've been just trying to recover what I already had. But I thought even if I have the information to tell to you of how it did on my face, I should still show the application and show it throughout the day so you have some point of reference. So while I'm applying it, I'm going to explain how things went the first day. I think I still have a video from my phone at the end of the night because it wasn't on my camera. What I did on the first day is I applied it on one side with a brush and on the other side with a sponge. And it looked much better on the side with the sponge, as it typically does, but it was much lighter coverage than the side with the brush. So I tried another day of applying it with a brush and then going over it with a sponge to kind of smooth it out, and that did help a lot. The first day I put it on, I did not have a primer on. I just had my moisturizer and SPF. Today as I'm applying this, I have my moisturizer, SPF, and then a hydrating oil over the SPF. When I first tried it on the side with the brush, it did end up looking a little bit dry, so that's why I put the oil on today. Something I noticed every time I put this foundation on is it's not a quick blend. It's something that you really have to take your time with. It just doesn't blend in seamlessly like some other foundations do. You have to work at it. That's not like a huge deal to me. It just might not be a foundation I take when I'm traveling or if I'm in a hurry. This foundation shade is a little bit off for me. I can't tell if it's too dark or if it's just too much of a different tone. I don't think you can tell as much on camera, but in person, I think it might look like a half shade darker. Blend that down my neck. So off camera, the second day that I tried this out, I used the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer. Also, when I tested out the concealer on the first day, I set it with the Essence Brightening Banana Powder, and I did like how the concealer looked. I definitely thought it could look more full coverage, but by the end of the day, it still looked pretty good compared to other concealers that I've tried out. Just a real quick pause. Also on the first day, it didn't look as luminous as it does today. I think the oil underneath is really helping. Like, you can tell it looks very, very luminous right there. It actually looks a lot better today too, blending out with the brush. Like, I could leave it like this without going over it with a sponge. So I think that that hydrating oil is like key. Just for fun, I am going to go back over it with the sponge just so it's smoother. Okay, so I was talking about the other day, I used the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer, and to set my under eyes, I used the Coty Airspun. I actually put the Coty Airspun all over my face. I thought, let's see how it looks set with powder, and not a good day. It wanted to like instantly transfer everywhere, and I had to wear a mask that day, so it did not last very long. That's not necessarily the foundation's fault because I did use a specific primer and a specific setting powder with it, so it could have been a mixture of those products or just one of them. But I don't think that this foundation is a good mix with those type of putty primers. I also tried it one day with the Essence Healthy Glow Pore Minimizing Effect Primer, and it looked okay. It didn't look better than the first day. I thought since this is kind of glow and hydrating that it would make it look a lot better, kind of like how it does today, but it didn't really make a huge difference. This is what the foundation looks like on the skin with the brush and with the sponge. Like, this is the best it's looked all of the days. Like, I liked it the other days, but right now it just looks really, really seamless. On the first day, I did get some creasing up here immediately, but that's not that unusual for me because I do that a lot. First day when I applied the concealer, I used just a sponge, and I ended up going in twice with more product to try and build it up because it was just looking way too light of coverage, and this is supposed to be all day full coverage. It looked okay as far as like the finish, but I could still see a lot of darkness underneath my eyes. But the next day I tried it with a brush, this brush, and I think it looks a lot better applied with the brush. You can get better coverage, and I would go over it with a brush and then kind of smooth it out a little bit with a sponge just so it looks more smooth and blended into the foundation. Blend that into the foundation. I'm trying to do a close-up of my under eyes and hopefully it picks it up. I think it looks pretty good underneath my eyes. I have a problem with a lot of concealers looking very dry underneath my eyes, and I think this definitely looks better than some. I do have creasing, but I have lines underneath my eyes, so like that's unavoidable with basically any foundation I use. It's not like the most full coverage concealer because you can definitely still tell that there's some like darkness coming through, but I think it looks pretty good, especially from afar. It does look more full coverage. Like, as I'm looking in the viewfinder, it looks pretty good in my opinion. And on the first day when I put on this foundation, I didn't like how it looked with the brush, but once it set in, after I finished my makeup and had time to sit on my skin, it looked a lot better. So I think it's one of those foundations that just has to kind of like seep into your skin and mix with your natural face oils to really start looking good, because it initially just looks like you placed it on your face. Today, to set my under eyes, I'm going to use my CYO fixing powder. Now, this brand is no longer around, but I really like this as an under eye powder, so I want to give this concealer the best chance it can get since it didn't work well with the Coty and it worked okay with the Essence. I will input the video I took on my phone into this video so you can see how it looked at the end of the night, the first day, because I had first worn it for 10 hours. I wore that foundation until midnight so I could meet the 10-hour mark, and then I didn't even get the footage. I'm looking in the mirror, and this eye I think actually looks like much better than it usually looks. This eye has more darkness showing through because it has more darkness in general. So far, I am liking the concealer today. I think it looks good with the CYO fixing powder. This foundation does look very dewy right now, which I really like. When I first put it on, it didn't really seem like a luminous foundation like it's described, especially throughout the day. It set down and looked very matte. I'm going to do the rest of my makeup and then come back on camera and show you how the foundation looks after it's set down a little bit. And it is 11 o'clock right now, so I'm going to do another 10-hour wear test. Okay, so I just finished up my makeup and I can see already that it did rub off my nose right there, so I'm not sure if I bumped it while I was doing my eye makeup. And it's not the most full coverage because I do have a pimple coming through right there that you can clearly see is still red, as well as there, but I think it only claims to be medium coverage. Actually, it only says buildable coverage, so it never claimed to be full coverage, so I can't really knock it for that. I really like how it looks though. I think it still looks pretty smooth on my skin. Still looks very dewy One of the days I tried it out, it looked very makeup-y, but I feel like right now it looks very smooth, like skin-like. Not, you can obviously tell that this is not my skin, but I don't know, it just looks not that heavy. So what I did the other day is I checked in after 5 hours and then at the 10-hour mark. So I'm gonna do the same today. It's 11:30, so I will see you at 4:30. Okay, it is the end of the day. It's been on for about 10 hours. Not a huge difference from the update earlier. It does still look dry on this side, and it is rubbed off on my nose. But overall, not that bad. I'm going to try it again tomorrow and see how it ends up. Okay, so it's been about 6.5 hours. I was driving and I just got back. I'm in my paint clothes. I'm looking rough. But the foundation is looking okay. I accidentally went like this a couple of times, forgetting that I was wearing makeup. So if it's like a little bit off in this area, that's why. My nose is looking like a little bit oily right over here. Could also just be the lighting. Yeah, well, feels a little bit oily, but I think the lighting is really highlighting that. I was also wearing a mask, so it does rub off on the nose when I wear a mask. But in the areas that I wasn't wearing a mask or didn't rub my face, it seems to be doing pretty good. Still looks smooth. It's not looking cakey, not looking dry. It still looks dewy, which is cool. I'm on my phone right now, so I will do the second checkup of the day, the 10-hour mark on my camera, so hopefully it looks a little bit better. So far, I'm liking it. It's not looking too rough. It lasted 6.5 hours, and while that's not like a tremendous amount of time, I've been doing a lot, so it seems to be holding up okay. As long as I remember that I'm wearing makeup and don't rub my shirt on my face. I'll check in later. Okay, the foundation has been on for a little over 10.5 hours by now. It is rubbing off in some areas. A little bit has rubbed off on my forehead, probably because I touched it. There's more rub off on my nose, around my mouth area. Like I said earlier, I did do this, so that's probably why all of the missing foundation is around this area. It seems to be okay, like on my cheeks and on my forehead where I don't touch it so often. So this isn't like a transfer-proof foundation, but it's not bad. I think it still looks pretty good. I do have a little bit of oiliness on my nose, which isn't unusual, but I do have foundations that control it a lot better. I do have to say, though, that I think it still looks pretty good on my skin. On the areas it's not rubbed off, it doesn't look cakey. It doesn't look dry, flaky, like so many foundations just look like the foundation is building up on your skin by the end of the day. So far, this foundation isn't bad. I like it. It's not my favorite because I do have others that perform a little bit better. I think tomorrow I'm going to try setting my nose with powder and seeing if that helps, and also try not to touch my face so much and remember that I'm wearing makeup. So far, I'd say this foundation is about like a 7 out of 10. I think it definitely has potential once I learn what products go better with it. I will check in tomorrow after I apply it to show you how it looks, and we'll go from there. Okay, today is the last day of my Wet n Wild Photofocus Foundation Dewy version wear test. Typically I post my videos on Tuesday, but this one's going to be a little bit delayed because today's actually some good conditions to test a foundation. So in my county today, we got a ton of snow. There's a winter storm warning and a snow emergency, which means that we can't be on the roads unless absolutely necessary for your job. And that means I'm going to be walking about a half mile somewhere today through the snow, through the cold. And I was like, let's see how this foundation holds up in bitter cold, like being shot at my face, and with a little bit of exercise, because even though it is cold outside, I'll still be like trudging through the snow, exerting effort, and I want to see how this holds up. So today I applied it and I used the face oil again. It looks very, very dewy today, which I love. I accidentally put on way too much at first and it looked like super cakey, but I blended it out with a wet sponge and then put a setting spray, and that helped it a ton. I think it still looks good today, but it does still look like a little bit cakey. I definitely think that's because of how much I put on by accident, because it didn't look this level other days. Try and get a close-up. Hopefully you can see on the camera. And then I used the Incognito concealer along with the CYO fixing powder underneath my eyes, and I think it looks pretty good. It still doesn't seem like the most full coverage concealer, but I like it. So I'm about to go trudge through the snow, and I will do an update video after maybe 5 hours, or if there's any big changes after I get to my destination. Okay, the foundation has been on for about 6 hours. This was after walking about a half mile in the snow and the cold, just like beating me at my face, and I've been painting and doing other stuff. I was also outside playing with my dog, and I did break a little bit of a sweat, so I got to test if this is like sweat proof. I'll zoom in. On camera, it doesn't look that bad, but in person, like, you can tell, sorry, my hands are covered in paint. You can tell it's like really separating here. It's definitely separating on my forehead and around my chin. It doesn't look the worst, and some of this could be because I put on too much this morning. But it could also be that this foundation just doesn't hold up well in the winter or if you're sweating. Like, a lot of the foundation around my nose has rubbed off or just separated. And my nose, I powdered, and it's looking a little bit oily. So I think when I wear the oil, I should not put it on my nose because that's causing too much oiliness. You can especially see around the nose how bad it is. It wasn't like this any of the other days, so I think there is a time and a place to wear this foundation. It's definitely not horrible. I'm going to check back in at 10 hours and see how it looks. But from afar, it actually looks okay. It's just when you get up close, you can tell that it's separating. Okay, so the foundation has been on for a little over 10 hours by now. I think it actually looks better than how it looked earlier. Earlier, it was starting to separate and it was just looking kind of iffy. But for some reason, it looks smoother now. There still is like a bunch of rub off near my nose and like around my mouth. But my forehead seems to be looking better. Earlier, it was looking pretty rough. And the foundation on my cheeks actually looks all right. I have paint all over my hair. I think if I were to have not put too much foundation on this morning, that this would have gone a lot better. So this is one I can't be so heavy-handed with, but I've got to say I'm pretty happy. It looks decent after 12 hours or 10 hours. I mean, for a foundation that costs $5, I think that's pretty great. It's not my favorite foundation, and I think there are other drugstore options that last longer, but maybe not for this cheap. Wet n Wild is like really at the lowest level of the drugstore brands as far as price goes. Like, they have a lot of great quality products, don't get me wrong, but when you compare to some of the brands like CoverGirl, L'Oreal, Physicians Formula, you can't find a foundation for $5. I mean, some of these drugstore brands are trying to charge almost $20 for a foundation, which is just absurd in my mind. But charging $5 for the quality I got, I think is pretty fantastic. I do really like Wet n Wild, and they are one of the few drugstore brands that I support because they are cruelty-free. A lot of brands like L'Oreal, Maybelline aren't. So this brand gets big points for that. I forgot to mention the concealer. The concealer does look like it's separating a little bit, like right in the same spot, like where the eye starts to curve down is where it's starting to separate. I'm not sure why, but I think the concealer still looks pretty good. Like, it still looks full coverage, and like there aren't as many lines underneath my eyes showing as there are for a lot of other concealers. The concealer, I think, is definitely a winner. I think it looks really good, and my under eyes are so finicky, and it actually looks good in my opinion. Like, I have so many concealers that look dry and cakey as soon as I put them on, and they accentuate the lines underneath my eyes. But I feel like with this one, like, you can tell I have lines, but they're not accentuated. So out of the two products, I think the concealer is my favorite, but I think both are pretty good. This foundation, especially for the price, I think is definitely worth it. If you have super oily skin, the Dewy foundation might not be the best for you. You might want to try their matte version, but I'm like decently happy with how both of these products performed, and these are products I think I would use in the future. These aren't just things that like I would use for a video and then never use again. But yeah, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Give this video a like, thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you will. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video.